akaida.com, and today we have a special guest. It's Lena Pu, and she's an environmental health consultant, and she had contacted me about the orgone pyramids, and I had sent her some. And she's also not only a consultant, but she is electrosensitive, and that's a big issue today. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and give us some of your story?
Hi, I became electrosensitive back in 2011, probably shortly after smart meters went in. We got smart meters back in 2009, and it probably took about a year's worth of exposure for me to become sensitized. And including the smart meters, I was exposed to all kinds of wireless. My computer station, the entire setup was wireless. And then I was also using decked phones, and I was using cell phones every now and then. But basically, my entire living situation was I was surrounded by wireless. And so my symptoms were I would wake up in the morning, and I would wake up with achy arms and legs as if I had ran a marathon, which I didn't. So I knew there was something wrong, with my environment, because after a night's worth of sleep, my body shouldn't be waking up achy. I was also having heart palpitations. I was having insomnia. I actually couldn't stay asleep. I would wake up every couple hours, probably because of smart meters, because the smart meter is actually on the same wall as our bedroom.
So can you explain to us what electrosensitive is?
Good question. Okay, electrosensitivity actually can strike anyone. You may or may not feel it, but my sensitivity grew according to the exposure levels. Electrosensitivity is when you feel the wireless radiation, microwave radiation, and these are all being put out by cell phones, cell towers, your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, any type of device that runs on wireless, and it could be your deck phone as well. So these things are putting out microwave radiation, and it actually enters your body. I mean, this is how microwave ovens work. The radiation impacts the object you're trying to cook, and the waves penetrate, so it heats up from the inside. So, these waves penetrate our bodies, and it only takes a subtle amount of energy for it to impact our body. And for me, I've always been very sensitive to my environment, my surroundings. I'm very sensitive to sights, smells, and sounds, and so for me to be sensitive to electronics, that was kind of a no-brainer. It didn't take me very long to figure out that I was electrically sensitive. So once I discovered I quickly turned off all my devices onto airplane mode. Your computer, you can turn off the Wi-Fi feature, the Bluetooth feature, hardwire everything. So I started hardwiring everything, and that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm regaining my health back. I was able to sleep through the night. I woke up without any heart palpitations or achy legs and arms. I was not fatigued. That was one of the big things. I was fatigued all the time. So I'm no longer fatigued.
So you're saying that instead of using the Wi-Fi, you would use like the Ethernet cable or something like that?
Yes, exactly. And connect it to your service provider, the box. So your box can run both wires, and it can run wirelessly. And everyone, by default, now the companies think everyone wants it wireless. So everyone's routers, by default, are run wirelessly. But you can ask them to shut the wireless feature off and connect an Ethernet cable from that to your computers. And I have desktop computers. I can also hardwire my laptop. It just takes extra cabling. You just have to be very mindful of where you want to use your laptops. And I use cabled phones too, the old-fashioned cable phones. So it's definitely reduced. Oh, I got rid of my smart meter too. So that was.
Well, I think everybody has seen our electrified world, but they just don't realize it. Like if you go to the Wi-Fi connect in your laptop or your computer, you go look at the tab, and when it drops down, you have like sometimes 20, 30 signals, and those are all overlapping Wi-Fi signals from all your neighbors, right? So it's like not only are you getting these anti-biological energies in your own space, it's like
Yeah.
it's like the whole neighborhood, and there's all these overlapping signals, right?
Exactly. And sometimes you get full bar signals from like five or six, I mean, a ton of sources, right? And that's very hazardous. You're basically getting full strength Wi-Fi signals in multiple directions, and then each you're not only getting the Wi-Fi signals, but you're also getting cell tower signals that are bleeding into homes now. So you're getting all different frequency levels. You're not just getting Wi-Fi, which is 2.45 gigahertz or 5.8 gigahertz. You're also getting 900 megahertz from cell towers and 1800 megahertz and 22. It's a whole range of frequencies. So we're bathing in electrosmog, and that's an understatement. And we're just increasing the levels and amounts too.
Where are some of the hot spots or common places where you would get the most of this electronic pollution?
Cities. Just being in a
Cities?
city.
Because there's like the Wi-Fi, there's cell phones. Are there what are the devices or emitters that are most common that are problem spots?
I would say, first of all, any device that's the closest on your body, which would be cell phones. And then the next would be Wi-Fi. Now I think they have they're making industrial strength Wi-Fi, and the routers in the homes are now even more powerful than they've ever been. Because I don't know if people realize it, but there are a lot of Comcast, Verizon. I don't know which providers you use, but they're making homes basically hotspots. Your own personal space is now being utilized commercially to provide service for your neighbors. If they want to buy into it, or not even to service the neighbors, but to service the company itself for their own purpose, which I dare not wonder how they use it. So when we're talking about hotspots, you're going to look at 4 different exposures of the 2.45 gigahertz. One is for yourself to use, and the 5.8 gigahertz is one of them for your personal use. But there's another layer of the 2.45 and the 5.8 that is stronger than your own personal use, that is made for the company. So you're exposed to 4 different layers of frequencies, of those 4 frequencies. And that people do not know. And then people wonder why they're always so sick. Why can't I not sleep? I'm just, in a constant state of anxiety or depression. It affects everything. It affects us on a DNA, cellular, tissue, whole body, systemic level. So that's why it's so hard to pinpoint, exactly what are the physical manifestations of being exposed to wireless radiation. Well, that's because it affects from the DNA all the way to the whole body system. But the easiest way to figure out a good way to test if you are sensitive, which I think actually everybody is, because we're all beings of frequencies, is to turn off all the gadgets in your home, to keep your phone on airplane mode, and see how well you fared. Are you feeling better? Do you sleep better? Are you thinking clearly? Are you retain your memory? All those things. You just have to be aware of your own body. Listen to your own body, and that, I think that's probably one of the best ways to figure out to find healing or to find betterment in your health.
Well, I've noticed the smart meters, which are the digital power meters on all the houses and apartments. Sometimes it's bad if it's on your house, but some of these apartment blocks I've seen where they'll have like 20 or 40 meters all in one block.
Yeah.
And if you're anywhere close to there, you're really getting fried because according to what I've read, each of those meters is up to 160 cell phones worth of signal. So, multiply that by 10. Just to say there's 10 smart meters in a row. That's like 1,600 cell phones. And, usually they'll have more than 10 because apartment blocks, they'll have like, 20 plus units. So.
Yeah. It's devastating. And that is why so many people became electrically sensitive. a lot of the people that I know that are electrically sensitive became sensitive as soon as the smart meters went in, and especially in the cities where you were talking about those blanket smart meters on walls, where if a person's bedroom was on the other side, they're getting slammed by all the smart meters, and the nature of the waves of the smart meters is also very different than most of the wireless radiation that's being put out. Not that I'm saying that the other stuff is safe, but the smart meters are especially hazardous because of the nature of the waves. It hits you, and then it stops. And when it hits you, it's like going 1,000 miles per hour, and then you're putting on the brakes. So if you look at the spike of the smart meters, it's just this, this split second of exposure, and then it stops, and it keeps doing that. It's like it's slamming your cells.
Well, the companies, they say it pings, right? It's like sending a signal to them 24 hours a day. But like you're saying, when if people can go look this up on YouTube and just go like smart meter pollution, so forth, and you'll see like the ticks on the EMF meters, and it's ridiculous how high the pulse is. I think it's even you probably know more than me on this, but I think it's higher than what even their regulations say is healthy for a human body, right? So
well, let's just say that their regulations are so high that anything is safe. They just made the bar so high that it's based on thermal levels, and we're so sensitive that we don't need thermal levels to be affected. I mean, our cellular effects are not based on thermal levels, right? We function not on thermal levels. So why are they saying that we have to worry about thermal levels? No, we need to look at non-thermal levels, the non-thermal microwave effects. And so when they're looking at the spikes of a smart meter, according to the FCC regulations, they made the bar so high as based on thermal levels that anything that they put out is quote unquote safe in their eyes, in their mind, which is a complete misnomer. I mean, it's a complete it's false. It's completely false. As a matter of fact, it's criminal. What they're doing is criminal. And in the past, you can look at even the Department of Interior, even EPA, in the past have gone to FCC and say you need to revisit your emission levels because they are based only on thermal levels. We know that microwave radiation impacts us at a non-thermal level because we have enough studies, also military-based studies that have been declassified that says that these microwave energies at these low levels will impact biology, will impact our bodies. So they've had pressure for decades to revisit the emission levels. And the emission levels were designed back in the Telecommunications Act of 1996. But the emission levels were designed even before then. So the government has been deciding, what is safe and what's not safe. What's not safe. That was, I mean, I don't want to go back into the the real history of it, but that was back in 1950s, and it relates back to Operation Paperclip. The scientist, one of the scientists, the father of biomedical engineering, actually, Hermann Schwann, was the man who came up with emission levels, and he came from Operation Paperclip. He came from the Nazi regime, so he was a scientist that worked for the Nazis, and the U.S. pulled him out and said, "We're going to give you a job here and save you from getting, being sent to jail. As long as you work for us, we'll put you under Operation Paperclip, and then you're going to work on radar. You're going to work on, figuring out the safe emission levels for radar."
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but the common, kitchen microwave that everybody, well, not me, but a lot of people use. I believe they figured out that it could melt things. The story I read was it was probably radar or something like that, right? And somebody had like a chocolate bar, and the chocolate bar melted, and they're like, "Hey, this can heat things up." It's like, so basically you have a radar emitter in your house, and you're frying your food with that. Yeah.
And by the way, it leaks.
Yeah.
They all leak. Every single one of them. I've tested it. Magnetically speaking and radio frequency, they all leak. I can be in the other side of the house and I can still pick up signal. So yes, you're right. That scientist who discovered the microwave, he had some candy bars inside his pocket and he was playing with radar and it melted in his pocket and he figured it out and they made a device from it. It was marketed in the US and the military actually embraced this technology and started using it to cook food, I think, for the military because it's so quick. Now you have to understand that Russia was the one country that banned use of microwaves, right? And they're also the country that did the Moscow signal when they did this nefarious clandestine operation where they zapped the U.S. embassy. I think it was back in the 60s and 70s.
Oh yeah, they fried some U.S. ambassadors.
And they all came down with leukemia. 3 of them, all right? 3. 2 came down with leukemia. 1 of them died from something else, but they all quickly died. And everybody had all kinds of cancers, leukemia, breast cancers, fertility issues, depression, suicide. Yeah, this is all documented. So
well, you might have heard me mention that the Russians, they're the masters in frequency and resonance. So yeah, and they're very aware of the quantum and these subtle energies. Although the microwave's not subtle, but I think that's one of the reasons that they've banned the GMO and so forth. It's not just that it's unhealthy, but they as a country and a people are preserving basically their genetic wave, it's like the strength or spiritual level of their people.
Yes.
And they're aware that, I mean, a lot of these issues like the Wi-Fi and electrosensitivity, it's basically, in my opinion, it's a de-spiritualization of the understanding, because you could say that spirit is energy, right? So if people could see a lot of these energies, like the Wi-Fi